The myth of the Galactic Monsters. The galaxy was vast, stretching farther than any one species could ever hope to comprehend. It was a realm of wonders and terrors, where alien civilizations thrived in harmony or warred in silence. To the established species of the galaxy, it was a well-charted territory, where unknowns were rare and mysteries, though many had been tamed by centuries of exploration. But there was one fear that had never been fully explained: the myth of the Galactic Monsters. The first whispers of these creatures had spread through the stars long before humans had even made their first tentative steps beyond Earth. No one could remember the exact moment the stories began, but they were older than the oldest civilizations. They had survived countless generations, passed on by survivors of destroyed worlds, told in hushed tones around flickering campfires on distant moons, or shared across the stars by those who dared to venture too far into the unknown. The monsters were said to be colossal, godlike in appearance, being so ancient and powerful that they could reduce entire star systems to dust in a single blink. They could wipe out fleets of ships, decimate planets, and obliterate any race foolish enough to cross their paths. Stories spoke of enormous creatures of metal and flesh, their forms massive and insurmountable, their only purpose to destroy. What made the ale even more chilling was that no one had ever actually seen them. No one had ever found the source of the destruction, the true nature of the monsters. And yet, the reports were undeniable. Fleets had vanished without a trace, planets had been turned to ash, and no survivors remained to speak of their encounters. The fear was real. Among the galactic species, the myth was treated as a parable, a cautionary tale. Most dismissed it as superstition, a relic of ancient times when their ancestors had lived in fear of the unknown. But some, particularly those from species whose planets had been mysteriously destroyed, took the myth more seriously. The Kree, an advanced, hyper-intelligent species, had lost an entire colony to what they believed were the Galactic Monsters. Their capital ships had simply disappeared while navigating an obscure stretch of space, and no trace of the fleet was ever recovered. No debris, no distress signals, nothing. For centuries, they refused to venture into that sector again. Even after developing ships capable of traveling into the deepest reaches of the galaxy, the Kree remained silent on the subject. They had their own theories, but they never shared them with anyone, not even their closest allies. Then there was the Zareb, a reptilian race known for their arrogance and military prowess. They, too, had lost an entire fleet during an exploration mission into an uncharted system. The Zareb were fierce, and no one dared question their strength. But the incident was enough to shake their unshakable confidence. It became known among the Zareb as the Night of No Return. They, too, took the threat seriously, and their tales of near madness upon discovering the ruins of their lost ships were a whispered legend throughout the galaxy. And now, a new species had entered the fold: humans. Captain Emily Harris stood on the bridge of the ship Eagle's Wing, a sleek, state-of-the-art human exploration vessel. Her eyes, steady and calm, gazed out into the deep void of space. The quiet hum of the engines was a comforting sound, but today, it did little to soothe her nerves. The mission she had agreed to lead was no small task. Humanity had only just begun to explore beyond their homeworld. And though they had made significant strides in technology and space travel, there were still considered newcomers in the galactic community. Many of the established species regarded them with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Could humans truly be a threat? Could they contribute to the balance of power? Or were they destined to be nothing more than an afterthought in the grand scheme of the cosmos? When Captain Harris was first approached with an invitation to join a coalition of alien species on a mission to explore the galactic myth, she had almost laughed it off. Surely, this was a waste of time. Yet, the more she heard about the project, the more intrigued she became. The coalition was sending a small fleet of ships to investigate a particularly dangerous section of space, a region known for unexplained phenomena and, more troublingly, for the disappearance of entire fleets. It was rumored that this was where the monsters dwelled. The offer to join the investigation was too enticing to pass up. As captain of the Eagle's Wing, Harris saw an opportunity to prove humanity's worth. The Alliance had chosen her not just for her expertise in navigation and strategy, but because they were curious about how humans would handle the truth behind the galactic monsters. Would humans, in their naivety, become the next victims? Or would they uncover something far more terrifying? With the stars spread out like a vast ocean of uncharted territory before her, Harris couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to step into a deeper, darker mystery. The tale she had heard, about planets lost without a trace, about the destruction of entire fleets, were not just stories anymore. They were very real, and it was up to her and her crew to face the unknown. Captain Harris took one last look at the holomap of the galaxy, tracing the coordinates of their destination. Her fingers lingered on the map's surface, uncertain. The legend of the galactic monsters might have been a myth for most, but for her, it was about to become a reality. With a final command, the engines roared to life, and the eagle's wing leapt into the unknown. The search begins. The vastness of space stretched endlessly before Captain Emily Harris and her crew, each star a distant point of light in an ocean of black. As the eagle's wings sliced through the void, a sense of unease settled over the crew, despite the smooth hum of the engines beneath their feet. It had been days since they had left the familiar regions of known space, and now they were venturing into the dark heart of the galaxy, toward a sector that even the most experienced species avoided. The Alien Coalition's mission to uncover the truth about the galactic monsters was no longer just a speculative venture. It was an expedition into the unknown, one that could alter the future of galactic civilization. Captain Harry stood at the helm of the ship, her hands clasped behind her back as she gazed at the holographic display in front of her. The coordinates marked a point of interest, a star system that had been wiped from all maps a century ago. Entire fleets had vanished there, never to be heard from again. The legend spoke of strange anomalies, gravitational disturbances, and electromagnetic signals that sent most advanced ships into a panic. No one had dared investigate it for fear of meeting the same fate as those who came before. "Captain," a voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Lieutenant Rykov, the Eagle's Wing's chief engineer. His sharp features were framed by a mane of dark hair, and his eyes, though usually filled with confidence, were now clouded with concern. "We're approaching the outer rim of the system. The readings are strange. Something's not right." Harris nodded, her brow furrowing. She had expected something like this. The Kreth and Zareb had been the most vocal about the dangers of this region, claiming that whatever had destroyed their fleets was not natural. The idea of encountering the monsters, even in the faintest form, was a haunting thought. "Keep the shields up," Harris ordered, her voice steady but carrying an edge of caution. "Full sensors on. We can't afford any surprises." As the Eagle's wing drew closer to the system's edge, the stars around them began to flicker and distort. The ship's instruments began to malfunction, with blinking lights and erratic readings flashing across the control panel. It was as if the very fabric of space around them was warping. Harris turned to her first officer, Commander Lin, a tall, disciplined woman of the Zareb species, whose sharp reptilian eyes never left the view ahead. "This is it, isn't it?" Harris asked, her voice barely audible over the growing hum of the ship. Lin, who had seen more than her fair share of unexplained phenomena, simply nodded. "We've crossed the threshold. There's no turning back now." The tension in the bridge was palpable as the Eagle's wing continued into the system, the stars stretching into strange shapes and patterns that shouldn't have been possible. The ship's sensors continued to glitch, and a low hum reverberated through the hull, an unnatural sound that seemed to originate from deep within the heart of the system. Harris knew the team needed to find the source of the disturbance quickly before the situation escalated. "Helm," Harris commanded, "take us into the heart of the system. Let's see if we can locate the source of the anomaly." The ship's captain was no stranger to danger, but even she couldn't ignore the gnawing sense of dread growing in her chest. She had always believed in humanity's ability to conquer the unknown, but this was different. The stakes were higher than anything she had ever encountered before. Minutes passed like hours as they navigated through the eerie, distorted system. The stars seemed to blink out one by one, leaving behind an unsettling darkness. Then, without warning, the ship's sensors locked onto something massive. It wasn't a star or a planet. It was a wreckage field. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Harris barked. "This is a wreckage site." The crew watched in silence as the wreckage of alien ships drifted in the void, scattered like debris from an ancient battle. The destruction was far more thorough than anything they had seen before. Whole fleets had been obliterated, not just destroyed, but utterly pulverized, crushed beyond recognition. The metal fragments were scattered across a wide expanse, and there was no sign of any survivors. "I've never seen anything like this," Lieutenant Rykov muttered, his voice laced with awe and fear. "Whatever did this didn't just kill the ships. It erased them. There's no sign of crew escape pods, no distress signals." "Keep scanning," Harris ordered, her eyes narrowing. "There's something else here. We're not just looking at a random debris field." Her instincts were right. As the ship's sensors picked up faint signals in the wreckage, they discovered something chilling: the remnants of an ancient structure, partially buried beneath the debris of a shattered planet. It was unlike anything they had seen before. The architecture was both alien and familiar, a strange mix of technologies that seemed to defy the natural order of physics. The team gathered in the briefing room shortly after the discovery, trying to make sense of what they had found. "We've identified an unknown structure under the wreckage," Commander Lin explained, her claws tapping the table in agitation. "It appears to be a remnant from a long-lost civilization, one that may have been active centuries before any known species existed." "It's more than that," Captain Harris added. "This structure is central to the system. It was buried here for a reason. Whoever or whatever created it didn't want anyone finding it." The gravity of the situation began to sink in for everyone present. This was not just a random wreckage site. This was a tomb, a crypt, holding the secrets of a civilization long gone, perhaps wiped out by the same mysterious force that had destroyed the fleets before them. The crew knew they had to investigate further, but the risks were mounting. They had ventured too deep into a space filled with ancient terrors, and yet they couldn't turn back now. As the meeting concluded, Captain Harris stood by the viewports, staring out into the silent abyss. "We've come this far. We find out what happened here, whatever the cost." The ship's engines hummed as they altered their course toward the wreckage, their journey now a deadly dance with the unknown. The Galactic Monsters might have been a myth to some, but Harris knew better now. The truth was closer than anyone could have imagined. The revelation of the Galactic Monsters. The Eagle's wing hovered just beyond the wreckage field, its lights flickering in the cold expanse of space. Captain Emily Harris stood at the bridge, her hands gripping the edge of the command table. The atmosphere was tense, and every member of the crew could feel it, the cold, suffocating weight of the unknown pressing down on them. Despite their advanced technology and seasoned experience, they were about to uncover a truth that none of them were prepared for. "Elm, bring us closer to the structure," Harris ordered, her voice steady but taut with a sense of urgency. Lieutenant Rykov, sitting at the helm, worked the controls with practiced ease, guiding the ship toward the partially buried structure that seemed to pulse with an almost imperceptible energy. They had detected faint energy signatures emanating from within, but the readings were unlike anything they had encountered before. Alien, yes, but not in the way they had anticipated. This was something far older, something far more dangerous. The wreckage around them told a horrifying story. Alien ships, once mighty and proud, had been torn apart as if they were paper, twisted and shattered beyond recognition. Some had been torn in half. Others had simply vanished, leaving behind nothing but fragments of their hulls. No matter where they looked, there was no sign of struggle, no indication of what had done this. Just silence. Commander Lin, her sharp eyes scanning the data, spoke up. "The damage is systematic. Whatever did this knew exactly where to strike. These ships didn't just break apart randomly. They were annihilated at specific points. Power cores, weapon systems, every single one of them has been surgically disabled before destruction." Harris glanced at Lin, her face grim. "Then whatever did this wasn't just a force of nature. It was deliberate." "Agreed," Lin replied. "And I don't like the look of that structure down there. It's been buried beneath the rubble for a reason." They moved closer, and soon, the structure came into clearer view. It was enormous, far larger than any of them had expected. It resembled a city, or at least the ruins of one, with towering spires that stretched impossibly high into the cold darkness of space. The architecture was unfamiliar, both jagged and smooth, alien, yet with hints of design that felt human. The technology appeared ancient, but far more advanced than anything the crew had encountered. "We've never seen anything like this," said Lieutenant Rykov, his voice tight with awe and fear. "Keep scanning," Harris ordered, her pulse quickening. The mystery of the structure was overwhelming, but there was a strange, unsettling familiarity to it, something nagging at the back of her mind. The humans had built similar monuments in their own history, albeit on a far smaller scale. It felt familiar. They descended into the wreckage field and positioned the ship near a platform that extended from the buried structure. As they prepared to land, a strange wave of static crackled across the ship's comms, followed by a flicker in the sensors. Then, a hologram suddenly appeared in front of them, a distorted, ancient image of a humanoid figure, its features obscured by time. The hologram flickered and then stabilized. Its voice, though warped by age, was clear enough to be understood. To those who find this message, it began. "We are the last remnants of a once great civilization. We were the creators of the Galactic Monsters, the protectors of 1,000 worlds. Our empire spanned the stars, and in our pride, we built machines that could protect us from the universe's dangers. But we were blind to the truth, that the very machines we created would one day turn against us. They were never meant to be just weapons of war. They were designed to be something more." The crew stood frozen, their eyes locked on the hologram as the voice continued. "These creatures, these monsters, are not alive in the way you think. They are machines, yes, but they are more than that. They are the last of us, the final guardians of our civilization. They were meant to defend the galaxy, to bring order and peace. But in our arrogance, we lost control. They outlived us, and now they continue their mission, mindless, ruthless, and unstoppable." The image flickered again, and the message began to warp. "If you are hearing this, it is already too late. The monsters, they will come for you, as they came for us. We could not stop them. No one can." The hologram dissolved into static, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Captain Harris' mind raced. What did we just see?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Commander Lin spoke up, her voice hard as stone. "The Galactic Monsters, they are not creatures. They are weapons. Machines of war created by an ancient civilization, and now they've gone rogue, lost to time. And they are still out there, still hunting down anyone who might stand in their way." Lieutenant Rykov looked shaken. So the stories, they weren't just stories. They were warnings. "We've been walking right into the heart of this nightmare." Harris stepped forward, her thoughts racing. The myth wasn't just about some monstrous creatures. It was a warning about our own kind, about humanity. "What do you mean?" Lin asked, turning toward her. Harris' gaze hardened. "These machines, they were human creations. Not directly, but they were born from the same ideals, the same ambition. Our ancestors, long before us, must have built them. We have no records of such an empire, but the technology is human." The revelation hung heavy in the air. Harris got twisted as she realized the full scope of the truth. The Galactic Monsters were not some distant, alien threat. They were humanity's legacy, a dark echo of an ancient past that humanity itself had forgotten. "We need to find a way to stop them," Harris said, her voice resolute. "This is our problem now, our responsibility." As the crew absorbed the weight of their discovery, the sense of dread deepened. They had uncovered the truth about the Galactic Monsters, and now they had to face them. The awakening. The eagle's wing hovered above the ancient structure, its engines pulsing softly as the crew processed the chilling truth. The holographic message had been clear. The Galactic Monsters were not myths, nor were they alien beasts. They were weapons, machines built by a long-lost civilization, now turned into relentless, mindless guardians. The crew stood at the precipice of an unimaginable nightmare, and the silence on the bridge was deafening. Captain Emily Harris turned from the holographic display, her mind racing. The implications were staggering. These machines, these monsters, had existed long before humans even set foot in the stars. And somehow, their creators had vanished, leaving behind only ruins and a deadly legacy. "Captain, we've finished analyzing the structure," Commander Lin reported, her voice tight. She stood near the sensor console, her reptilian eyes focused on the readouts. "This structure, it's not just a monument. It's a command center, a control hub, the heart of the system." Harris felt a chill run through her. "Control hub," she repeated. "You mean these monsters are controlled from here?" "Not anymore," Lin said, her voice grim. "The machines, these monsters, are autonomous now. They don't need the central control to function. But this is where they were once directed, where they were created. There's a mainframe buried deep within the structure. I suspect it holds the key to understanding what happened." Harris nodded, her thoughts racing. "Then we go down there. We need to understand how to stop them." Lieutenant Rykov, who had been quiet up until this point, finally spoke. His voice was cautious, almost fearful. "Captain, we've seen the wreckage. If these monsters are still out there, they'll come for us. We're not just dealing with some forgotten weapon. They've been hunting entire fleets, entire civilizations, for centuries. We're just another target on their radar." "We're not just another target," Harris replied, her voice hard. "We're the ones who discovered their secret. We're not running from this." Commander Lin gave her a sharp look. "And how do we stop them? These things have wiped out fleets, an entire civilization. How do we fight something that powerful?" "We don't fight them," Harris said, her voice steady, despite the gnawing fear in her chest. "We outthink them." The silence on the bridge deepened. It was clear that everyone was feeling the weight of the situation. They were no longer explorers. They were now the last hope of the galaxy, standing between the ancient machines and the destruction of everything they had fought for. "How long until we're ready to land?" Harris asked, pushing the uneasy thoughts aside. She had a plan, but it hinged on one thing: accessing the control center deep within the structure. "We're ready now," Rykov said. "Landing coordinates are set. We've managed to clear a path through the wreckage. But we'll have to be cautious. If there's any chance the monsters are still active, we'll need to move fast." "Understood," Harris said. "Prepare the crew. We're going down." Moments later, the Eagle's wing descended toward the surface of the ancient structure. As the ship touched down on the platform, the crew was already gearing up for what lay ahead. Harris glanced around the bridge one last time before heading to the airlock. The crew was tense, their faces a mixture of determination and dread. "Remember, we're not just walking into an alien ruin," Harris said as they assembled in the airlock. "We're stepping into the heart of a forgotten empire. We're here to learn, and we're here to survive. Stay sharp. We have one shot at this." The airlock hissed open, and the crew disembarked, their boots crunching on the shattered platform beneath them. The air was heavy with the scent of decay and something else, something metallic, almost like ozone. The structure before them loomed large, a maze of corridors and chambers. The walls were inscribed with intricate symbols, alien glyphs that seemed to shift and shimmer as they passed by. It was clear that no one had set foot here in centuries. Commander Lin led the way, her instincts guiding her through the labyrinthine passages. "This place is something else," she muttered, her voice echoing in the silence. "It feels like the whole structure is alive, like it's waiting for something." "We'll find out soon enough," Harris replied, her voice low. "Let's get to that control center." They moved deeper into the structure, navigating narrow, winding hallways and descending flights of stairs that led them further underground. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. There were no sounds, no hum of machinery, no indication that this place had ever been inhabited. It felt abandoned, yet alive, an unsettling paradox. After what seemed like an eternity, they reached a vast chamber, its high ceilings lost in shadow. At the center of the room, a massive terminal stood, covered in ancient dust. The air was thick with the weight of forgotten knowledge. This was the heart of the system, the control hub that had once commanded the Galactic Monsters. "Here we are," Rykov said, his voice a mixture of awe and apprehension. "We need to access the mainframe," Harris said, approaching the terminal. She hesitated for a moment before reaching out to touch the interface. The moment her fingers brushed the surface, the room came alive. Lights flickered to life, and a low hum filled the chamber. Then, a voice, cold, mechanical, filled the room, causing everyone to freeze. "Unauthorized access detected. Protocol 17 Theta initiated. Termination sequence activated." The crew's hearts skipped a beat as the ground beneath them trembled. The machines, those monsters, were waking up. Harris stepped back, eyes wide. "We've triggered something. We need to get out of here. Now." But it was too late. The deep, guttural hum of machinery echoed through the chamber, growing louder, closer. The monsters had been awakened. And now, there would be no escape. The hunt had begun.